Since the plane was flying on a 1-hour short-haul route from Tokyo to Osaka, the plane had very few first-class cabins, with only 8 seats. Charlie's seat was in the second row by the window on the right. The weak flight attendant offered to help him put the suitcase. Charlie thanked her, but he did it himself and put the suitcase in the overhead compartment. Just as he sat down, Ruo Li walked in with a few first-class passengers. When Charlie saw her coming in, his first thought was to turn his head and not look at her, so as not to be discovered by her. However, between the electric light and Flint, he suddenly realized a problem. A female killer like Ruo Li's strength and perception ability, although not necessarily better than him, must be superior to ordinary people. And she is so beautiful, she must have accepted the attention given to her by ordinary men. If you deliberately avoid looking at her, she is very likely to notice something abnormal. So Charlie deliberately looked at Ruo Li with a look of surprise, as if he was shocked by her beauty and excited about being able to take the same plane with her. Ruo Li felt Charlie's scorching gaze, but just glanced at him casually, and her heart was immediately full of disdain. She secretly said contemptuously in her heart, "Hey, it's another rag who can't pull his legs when he sees a beautiful woman." Although Ruo Li sneered at Charlie's performance, it was Charlie's superficial appearance that made her relax a little guard against Charlie. Then, she stepped to his side and sat down directly next to him. As soon as she sat down, Ruo Li spent her spare time and looked at Charlie silently. This was not because she had doubts about Charlie, but because of her usual cautious habit. In each environment, the first thing she will do is to have a relatively in-depth understanding of the environment, so as to obtain more information that may be useful. She observed Charlie for a while, and found that this man was really handsome and looked pleasing to the eye. It is that when he looked at her occasionally, the straightforward look makes people look a little bit uncomfortable. So, Ruo Li turned around, looked at Charlie, and asked with a smile, "Hello. Are you Chinese?" Charlie didn't expect that this Su family's female assassin would turn her face to talk to him, so he pretended to be surprised, and then asked with a bit of surprise, "Beauty, how can you tell that I am Chinese?" "This is not a flight to China." Ruo Li smiled slightly and said seriously, "The difference between Japanese boys and Chinese boys is still very big. For example, Japanese boys basically shave their eyebrows, and their hairstyles and dressing styles are also different." Charlie smiled and said, "The beauty is really observant." Ruo Li nodded, and asked him, "Where are you from China?" Charlie said casually, "I am from Wuhan." "Oh." Ruo Li raised her eyebrows and said with a smile, "Wuhan is a good place. As the saying goes, there is heaven above and Suzhou below. The soil and water there are very nourishing." After that, Ruo Li asked him again, "By the way, since you are from Wuhan, you should know the Wu family, right?" After all, Ruo Li is a well-versed and experienced master. Hearing Charlie introduced himself as from Wuhan, her first thought was to determine whether Charlie lied. She felt that if the man next to her did not lie, he would most likely be a very useful tool person. On the next trip, if there is an emergency, he can be used as a shield, so that she can be better. Be safer. Charlie heard the woman next to him mention the Wu family, and knew that the other party wanted to test if he was from Wuhan, so he smiled and said, "Who doesn't know about the Wu family? The current owner is Regnar. He has 2 sons, one is called Roger and the other is called Wu Qi. That Wu Qi is very famous. It is said that don't know which of the tendons didn't match up, and he has to eat poop every once in a while. Oh, it's also amazing." Ruo Li smiled and said, "I didn't expect you to be familiar with Wu's affairs." Charlie said with a playful smile, "Of course, who doesn't know about the Wu family, Wuhan?" As he said, Charlie lowered his voice and said, "Tell you something more exciting." Ruo Li nodded, "Listen with respect." Charlie hooked her and said, "You get closer and I will tell you." Ruo Li couldn't help frowning slightly, and said in a cold tone, "You can just say that." Charlie wrote a copy of his face. How can the secret be told in front of so many people casually? If you want to listen, come and listen. If you don't want to listen, forget it. Ruo Li's anger came up all at once. Seeing Charlie's serious intention to take advantage of her, she wanted to lick him with her big mouth.